Policemen knocking on the door. We're arresting you for conspiracy to defraud and money laundering. Why would they lock up a grandmother? And the women in the north were the most friendliest people. Sometimes I forgot I was in prison. I believed that I was flying the flag for forgotten women.
So Barbara, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Let's start at the beginning then, Barbara. So, where did Barbara grow up?
I was born, one of my claim to fame, I was born in Paddington Hospital, the poor part where the Queen had her children in the rich part, and I was born in the poor part.
And at the same time?
Could have been, because I'm a 50s child, so yeah, could have been. Yeah.
Could have been. So where did you grow up then? So what was your neighbourhood?
North London, Wembley, Harlesden, North Wembley, and then we grew out to Hertfordshire. But I never lived anywhere more than a year and a half because my dad was a builder. He used to buy, sell, renovate. That's all he did all my life until I was about 30.
So take us through into your later life then, sort of into your teens then, sort of what started happening then?
Okay, so I'm from a family of 9.
9?
Including my mum, and I was the middle child.
Middle
so 7
child.
children. I was a middle child. 4 brothers above me, brother below me, and 2 sisters. And we all had a different skill, and I was the athlete. Oh, well, one of the athletes. Mm-hmm. But at school, I loved school. Nobody else loved school. I just loved school. And I think that's me because I just like to interact with people. Mm-hmm. When I was 12...
Yeah.
Bob Marley came to my school.
Shut up.
Yes, he had
No
the afro
way.
and everything, yeah. He came to my school and I don't know what sort of tour it was, but yeah, he came to my school. And in the same year, so when I was 13, I attended the World Cup with my brothers, sneaked into Wembley Stadium, opened up the bars, and I attended the World Cup.
Wow.
I'm impressed with both things, but certainly Bob Marley. I love Bob Marley.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Today's episode is brought to you in association with Practice Plus Group, providing quality healthcare in secure settings.
Life is full of twists and turns.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what's happened in your life then? What any regrets?
Have I gone here? I regret the fact that I took somebody else's opinion and I ended up in prison. Mm-hmm. Somebody else's advice and I ended up in prison for 12 months.
That sounds intriguing. So take us back to that then, Barbara. So at the start, from the beginning, what happened then?
So I worked for a company called Cable and Wireless, and they brought on this free local calls. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. And they made me redundant and they gave me £6,000, which was like a lot of money in 1999. I was so rich.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do what my dad did, and that was to sell property, but more so off plan. Mm-hmm. So the story goes that in 2008, the property market collapsed and I was selling off plan and I was working with the big banks, getting mortgages not getting the mortgages, but introducing clients to the builders. Mm-hmm. And the property market collapsed. Nobody was given any mortgages. I was introduced to someone and it just went downhill from there.
Right. So
what's the downhill?
Yes,
Okay.
Go on.
So the downhill was that he was cloning all my customers and cloning their details, and he gave their details to a crooked lawyer who pulled down mortgages from the banks, and the banks lost out.
Oh no.
That happened. I went to prison in 2012. 4 years. It took 4 years for me to go to court.
Crikey. So when was so tell me about the moment where you thought, oh, I'm in trouble here. What was that like?
Policeman knocking at my door. I am 50 years old. Policeman knocking on the door. Barbara Burton, yes, although it was more like 7 o'clock. What are they doing here?
Yeah.
And we're arresting you for conspiracy to defraud and money laundering.
Gosh. And so did they pick you up that day and take you in?
Yeah, straight away.
Tell us about that. How did that feel? That must have been pretty weird, getting popped in the back of a police car in your street.
And also the police station was like 5 minutes away in the car, so it wasn't even a journey to somewhere. You know, like when you see it on the telly. It's like it was literally up, put your clothes on, and out. And they locked me up for a day in that. And then, as I said, it took 4 years for me to actually stand before a judge.
And the limbo of that is an awful, awful place to be, isn't it? Yeah, horrific.
Yeah. I just took it for granted. I am now 55 years old, or 54, and why would they lock up a grandmother? I physically didn't do anything other than do what I was told, which is to give. So, and that's not me shying away from it. I did not steal any money, but the charge was conspiracy to defraud and money laundering the banks or something like that. I can't even remember it.
Quite often, the length of time is the complexity and the amount of crime and you've just been involved in that, unfortunately, sadly as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously, when it's bolted onto another conspiracy, you've become a victim of that.
Yes.
And that's probably how you've gotten the custodial sentence.
Yeah, and I was told that it was £15 million.
Yeah.
Crikey.
You know.
Goodness me.
You know, I don't even know what £15,000 looks like, let alone.
So tell me, so the hammer goes down, you get sentenced. What happened next?
All I could hear was 30 months. It's like a blank, but this is a slow motion down the stairs into a room. You're now starting to realise that this really means, this means that you're going to be locked up for 30 months, Barbara. I didn't know anything about
half sentences.
I just thought 30 months. Whether this is an irony or not, in those 4 years, I didn't tell my grown-up children.
Right. So when did
they? The night before.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was just too ashamed.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I was going to go to prison, so I told them the night before.
Crikey. So you get to prison and you're in reception. What's happening there? What's going on?
They ask you your age and all sorts of things. And I can remember her saying, we're going to give you some underwear. Did she tell me? Maybe she didn't tell me, but I just remember her. Nobody asked me what size I was. Nobody asked me anything, whether I was on my periods or anything, not that they were happening then. And I just remember her going like this, top shelf, pulling down a bag and giving it to me. No.
Which prison was it? Sorry.
I was spent 12 months in 4 different prisons.
Oh, right, yeah.
So the point I'm getting at is that she gave me a packet off the shelf when I went to the room, because that was the room then. I held up the knickers and they were like this big. So there was no empathy. I don't even know what the word is.
So you weren't a human being and an individual immediately. You were just a part of the system.
Yeah. And the irony of it is that my business plan that I wrote whilst I was waiting for 4 years, because I thought to myself, nobody's going to lock me up. But if they do, and that was like a 10%, if they do, I need to think of something that I can do for women in prison. So I wrote this business plan. And as I said, I spent 12 months in 4 different prisons because of overcrowding. Not that it was overcrowding, because one day I was the only person in the van, but that's another story. And the business plan was around helping women to better themselves by teaching them to make lingerie.
So you were well prepared before you got there, and the knickers
in
were
my head,
very ironic.
Yeah, very ironic.
Or a sign.
Yeah, a sign, definitely.
So you get your first night in the cell. What is that like? Were you on your own or were you with somebody else?
On my own. First night in the cell. I think that must have been one of the best night's sleeps I've ever had. Because
that's interesting, isn't it?
Because it's like, it's happened now.
Yeah.
Shoulders down. It's just happened now. I just have to get through this. So, yeah, I think it was one of the best nights I've ever slept in my life.
I think after 4 years, the limbo of the 4 years, you know, will you go, will you not go, all the pressure.
Yeah.
And then it's released, even though you're in an awful situation. That's the kind of...
Yeah, it's just like... Yeah. So, as I said, I was in 4 different prisons, and the women in the north were the most friendliest people. Sometimes I forgot I was in prison.
Right.
Do you understand where I'm
No,
getting?
I do understand. So it was like a community feel, like friends.
Yeah, and maybe because I was one of the oldest, I was almost like Auntie Barbara.
Yeah.
And I was solving problems and looking after people. And I refused my own family coming to Durham to visit me. So I said, because it was 200, it still is £200, the fare is to come here. So for 3 months, I didn't have any visitors.
Right. Gosh.
So the women in the north...
In Law Newton,
yeah, were my family.
They became your family.
Yeah.
That's lovely. So I'm interested to know, how did you go about sort of enacting that plan that you had in your head? Were you able to do any of that whilst you were in prison?
I was able to. I think I wrote. It was a business plan. Then it became a 150-page thesis, because the only 3 things that I did in prison, and then I became a pest, was gym, library, and a computer room.
And when you say you became a pest,
because I was always asking for the key for the computer room, and you can't go in there on your own, Barbara. Yes, I can. I
bet you got the key. I bet you got the key.
I
Yeah,
did.
I had a sneaking suspicion you might.
Yeah. So yeah, I was the first one up. Used to run around the grounds in the morning. Everybody else is sleeping. Wasn't allowed to go in the gym on my own, but sometimes they let me because, you know, I'm a good girl.
Yeah.
And that's the only 3 things I did.
It sounds good, but there must have been things that you saw, witnessed, trauma and stuff that was in there that shocked you.
So coming back now to Bronzefield, which is the 3rd prison, that's where I saw, so I'm now in London, Middlesex. That's where I saw women literally shitting on the walls, women cutting themselves.
Crikey.
Women, didn't see any of that in the north whatsoever. So yeah, I'm now this entrepreneur, and in 2018, I got a phone call from the BBC, and they said, "This is the BBC."
And just the timeline, just to check there, you're out now.
I'm out
now. How long had you been out?
About 4 years, because in 2013, about 4 years. Got knock on the door, phone call. Is that Barbara Burton? I said, yes. Do you know about BBC 100 Women? I said, no, didn't know what it is. It says, we are awarding you BBC 100 Women of the World in 2018.
Wow.
Fantastic.
How did that feel?
Do you know what? This is now, X amount of years later, I still can't believe that they found this woman in Watford.
Yeah.
And they've been around the world.
Yeah.
And they found this woman in Watford doing good, trying to do good.
So how much of what you were doing had you managed to set up whilst you were in prison before you came out? How far had the project gone?
Well, I've got a lot of firsts, and I was the first person that was allowed out on Rottle to go to evening classes at London College of Fashion to learn how to make lingerie. I don't think they've ever done it since.
That's amazing.
And so I used to leave at 5 o'clock, get to Oxford Circus, so from Kent to Oxford Circus, go to London College of Fashion, do my hour and a half, and get back to the prison by 11:30, 11:45.
Just to clarify, that's release on temporary licence.
Yes, I was going to check in with Gary there. He does the acronyms for us on this show.
Sorry, So you are allowed out to on good behaviour. You're allowed out to do studying or to do work. So
did they know at the college, or were you just another student at the college?
Told my story everywhere.
Yeah, I bet you did.
And if you don't want to sit next to me, good luck to you. I don't give a Christmas. So that's my swear word, by the way.
You don't give a Christmas.
I don't give a Christmas.
I might have that. So you come out. You've done your study in lingerie.
Yeah.
What happens next?
And then I am now trying to set up a business to recruit women that have been through the system to help to make this come to life. It took about 4 years knocking on the door. So I've been to Parliament, I've been to the MOJ's head office, I've been talked to the prison minister, and we've got no money, Barbara. We've got no money, Barbara. It's too out there. Considering the prison population then was about 80-odd thousand, and only 3,000 of those were women. I believe that I was flying the flag for forgotten women, because the prison system has been made up for men and male, and I just felt that they didn't think about, well, what can women do? So I thought I just was trying to fly that flag. There was a stage in one of the prisons that, because I wasn't a goody-goody, I just wanted to do my sentence. So I was quiet, business plan, and I remember there was this, I think you're released on a Friday, and you can go into town or something like that. I'm not quite sure what that's called.
So town visit.
Yeah, town visit. And the governor at one of these prisons thought that people were smuggling in phones. So she asked me to come into her room and said, Barbara, I noticed that Mary Jane is definitely bringing in, but we can't prove it. Could you spy on her? So I just looked her straight in the face and said, you what? I said, yeah, could you just tell me who's doing blah, blah, blah? I said, no, I'm not doing your job.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, that puts you in such a position, isn't it? I mean, that's
can you imagine?
Hugely irresponsible, isn't it?
Yeah, can you imagine? I come back and say, I don't care. You can keep me in my room, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So it was, sometimes I was punished because I wouldn't do the things that they should be doing. When I say punished, my punishment was, you can't go to the gym, Barbara. You can't, etc., etc. We have this, I had this impression of a typical female prisoner. Was I wrong? Because I met barristers, teachers, actresses.
Yeah.
So yes, we had our, the murderers and the shoplifters.
Yeah.
Somebody going to sending somebody to prison for putting a chicken between her leg so that she could feed her child. So that the scale of how, why, and who, and when we send people doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
Doesn't make sense at all. And then you'd get the famous person that'd been to prison and was pat on the back. Oh, she's a hero. But if the same crime was done by a normal person, it's completely different. So there's no, as in my eyes now, there's no typical prisoner.
Yeah.
The cult of celebrity does get you a long way quite often, and in prison as well. Being locked up with some famous people as well in the past. So I've seen that happen.
Is there any, well, I'm sure there will be, and you can both answer this, stigma attached to spending time in prison, and do you face any of that today? Are there people who maybe doubt you a little?
Not me personally, because I walk into the bank, I need to open up a bank account, and by the way, I've got a criminal record. But yes, there is a lot of stigma for a job, for accommodation, insurance, just everything. Even if you don't need to, what's the word where
disclose.
You disclose, even if you don't need to disclose, somehow they'll find out. Companies are sacking people when they find it out later on, and they shouldn't be.
Well, there was the ban the box initiative, wasn't there?
I was part of that.
I mean,
what's the ban the box initiative?
So you didn't have to kind of disclose it within there.
Didn't have to tick it.
What we're trying to do is kind of turn that on its head a little bit. So if you have come out of prison and done well, then the agencies could come and advocate for you and say, look, this is where we are now. Even the police with kind of police checks and stuff. So we're trying to push that initiative forward. So, if you've done well and you've made an impact on the world, and you have, then that should be celebrated.
So where are you now, Barbara? What's happening with the business? Tell us where we're up to. I'm
not as active with helping women to to make lingerie. What I am doing, I'm working with Practice Plus, where we are supplying women, myself, working along the company, supplying women with reusable period pants, which is a first. So we're starting off with asylum seekers, and hopefully I will try to get into the prisons themselves to actually supply women with period pants. That's my.
And you're working with the Practice Plus group on that.
I'm working with Practice Plus group on this project.
Fantastic.
I think for me, one of the lots of things that stand out is the kind of sisterhood, the love that you were given, and you being a kind of, forgive us to say it, like mother figure and all. I think that's amazing, and the support. And I think mentioning the staff, that there are great staff and there are great people who work within the prison system. And I think the work that you're doing is absolutely amazing and should be commended.
Thank you very
much. It's fantastic.
Thank you. My new project that I'm launching this year.
It's very good, you see. It's what you were talking about before. Pushing now, getting in there, persistent.
I am collecting 7,500 pairs of jeans every year for the next 3 years to repair, repurpose and rebuild lives. We are going to teach underserved individuals to become artisans so that they can become financial sufficient, building their lives with these jeans. So where I am at the moment, I am stealing jeans.
So
donated.
Don't be leaving them on the washing line overnight. Barbara will be hurdling the hedge.
I don't care how I get them. And we are reaching out to the public, corporate companies, to collect these jeans. The jeans will become the material that we will train in people, men and women, to have their own roles, their own financial security. We then will be going to brands and asking them for their dead stock, their overproduced stock, and we're going to make a collection. Well, the company's going to make a collection so that on one hand, I have a commercial unit where we'll sell into the public these repurposed jeans. And on the other hand, we are training people to become artisans that are skilled. And the most important thing is that denim is the common denominator, and I am saving waste, denim waste.
Absolutely.
And if somebody wanted to help out, how do they go about that?
Find me on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
Barbara Burton.
Barbara Burton on LinkedIn.
Barbara Burton on LinkedIn, and I will be able to reach out and tell you a little bit more and how you can actually donate and help me to collect 7,500 pairs of jeans.
Brilliant. I think that's a great note to end on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you.